So it's a real college to send our kids to. And part of making that a very relevant part of our culture, they decided to start well before my arrival, an intercollegiate athletics program. Because that's a big part of our world culture, is athletics. Much of our lives, certainly mine. And so in 2010, I came from the Hilton Head area, came up here as their first athletics director, and really director of athletics development, if you would. So how would you go about doing that on a college that has 400 acres, 500 undergrad, seminary, 500 seminary and graduate students as well? And so the challenge of just saying, how do you birth that? How do you start that? So you first have to get to know your university. And I have to tell you, if you haven't been out there, it's gorgeous. It's kind of throwback. You kind of get out there and the kids say hello and they're kind and the faculty and staff are beautiful. I just came from chapel, so I'm uplifted and feeling good, and we get the opportunity to go to chapel. We don't have to go to chapel, we get the chance. And you kind of start learning about this culture. Of course, I was familiar with Columbia because I had lived here. But I had to first figure out, how do we start athletics? Do we join the NCAA? Do you join the NAIA? Do you join, what do you do? And so we joined what's called the NCCAA, National Christian College Athletics Association. So we started looking into that. We had to create a new mascot. There was no mascot. How do you identify? They had once been known as the Cougars. And honestly, when I came on board, they didn't want to be called the Cougars anymore. And so I was like, well, I'm all for that. We can change that. Some of you are laughing, you get that. And I know, we all have fun. So we changed that mascot. Now this is seriously how we do that. We got people involved. What did you want as your mascot? We have become the Rams. But there's a story behind the Rams. And with the biblical heritage, the story behind the Rams, most of us know the story of, it's actually a heartbreaking story, of Abraham in Genesis 22, taking his one son, Isaac, and being willing to be obedient to God. He takes his son to kill him. But his obedience, God said, stop. Your love for me shows that you'll obey me. So let me provide the blood sacrifice. And what was that in the thicket? The ram in the thicket. And so this is where CIU, why we're the Rams. And we literally wear the Rams on all of our uniforms, and in some ways, this is a little stretch, but it's a foreshadowing of Christ and his sacrifice for us. So that's kind of a neat thing to tie that in. I told that to Bluefield College, their athletic director, because they're the Rams. And he's like, I want that story. But I made it up, so he can't have it. So part of also adding athletics would be to add coaches. So now we go down this journey. And this is how you start building athletics. You join an association. You make a mascot. You have to evaluate the facilities. You have to evaluate those who are competing around you. Some people like start sailing, because you'd be champions right away because there's no other sailing organizations within our state. So that would be one way, but you have to figure out what you do. So we started kind of bread and butter. Right now, soccer is extremely popular. Running and cross country is the cheapest sport, so we were starting that. You didn't have to build a facility. And there's our Ram, by the way, right there. We look at one of our staff members created that. And our color is the same as Michigan. Blue and, they call it, maize. They call it maize. Okay, thank you. And so you create that. So we start hiring coaches. And right away we decided to start with soccer. And we have the privilege to, I don't know how this worked out, but we hired a man named James Whitaker. He was in the NCCAA already, National Christian College Athletics Association. He was national champion coach 2 times, and wanted to come to our program. And so we started with soccer. Again, we started with cross country. And we built a soccer field. And that is on the back side of the campus. That was our opening game 3 years ago now, so that's how long we've been doing this. And to build even the facility, to pray for, the funds to come up, that's hard for a little Bible college, because funds go to missions, and funds go to saving lives, and how do you bring funds for athletics? And although the donor remained anonymous, I just want to share that there was a woman who went to Columbia Bible College. I can't even say when she went, but she's 94 years old now. And she saw the value in an athletics program, and she gave the money for us to build a soccer field. And that was just such a blessing to get us started. And we're finishing up our third year, and we are very competitive. And so next year will be that whole rotation, the young men who came in the program, they'll be seniors, and we're actually hosting the regional championship. So it's going to be just a wonderful time of those. We have 11 seniors, so we'll have these 11 men finishing up their 4 years, and they had started the program. And we just continue to start a sport a year. So last year, we started men and women's basketball. And here's some more pictures of soccer, by the way. Those are our fans, Rowdy Ram fans. And we're called the Rams Army. This year, there's just a competitive. And then we started basketball. We had a facility already on campus, so we didn't have to build a facility that was not built with college in mind. But we made it a college facility. And so I don't know if anybody has ever started basketball. There's a lot of games. You can have 30 games. So we have 30 men's games, and we had 27 women's games. So we have 57 basketball games that we are doing their transportation and their food and their uniforms and home games and home operations. So it's just been fun and a challenge. And but we have 20 on our men's team. And these are 20 men that probably CIU wasn't on their radar before, and now they're coming to Columbia, and they're going to get their college experience here. And we have 14 on our women's team. And this year, in addition, our men's soccer team, again in their third year, they traveled on to Guatemala as a mission team. And ultimately, that's what we want to do, is to create these athletes to use that tool of their skill, like that soccer ball. You don't have to speak their language. You throw a soccer ball out there and they're like, whoosh, they all come. And that's what we want to learn, how to minister through sport. But we have to build it. So we have just also hired this past summer, we're adding women's soccer, and just hired the sweetest new coach. It'll be her first year as a head coach, and she came from Colorado Christian. And so we'll be adding that. So by next fall, we'll have 47 home events on our campus, combined with men and women's soccer and men and women's basketball, and we'll even have some races with our cross-country team. And now just this week, we have decided to hire our first men's golf coach, and we will start men's golf next fall. So you already met him. Jillian introduced him, and so George, if you'll just stand up again. So George Bryan is our new men's golf coach, and he really, have many of you taken lessons from George? Coach Bryan, you have to get used to that name, Coach Bryan, has been in the golf business around the Columbia area for a long time. And he played at the University of South Carolina as well, but about 20 years ago, George and I actually taught together, and that's how we met. And then just recently, our paths have crossed again, and he didn't know that we were looking at adding golf. And everyone's like, why don't you coach golf? And we can't be doing what we're doing, and then I have to leave every afternoon to go to the golf course. That would be awesome, but I can't do that. So, but I am just so privileged to come alongside with George right now and to have a future of developing this golf program. And again, our faith tells us, not my faith, because I'm not faithful enough, but God's faithfulness tells us that He has a plan. Whether we want to be in it or listen to it, I don't know. But he really has a plan for this university through sport to impact the nations with the message of Christ. So I'm kind of excited about that. So I don't want to over-spiritualize things, but you can see where CIU is really a special place. And I bet George would actually host any of you out there to come out and have lunch. We'll pay for your lunch and give you a tour of the campus and just get an opportunity, especially as a member of this organization, to see what our city holds for our higher education. Okay, so I brought in some coaches, and I was kind of set up to do this. My dad was a coach, and my dad is my Valentine. So he's 87 years old, and he lives in Kansas City, along with my mom. Still, we just put them in assisted living this past year, and many of us have done that, and it's a special time in our life. When I was little, my dad was the coach at University of Wisconsin, and I was born the youngest. And he was this man's man. I mean, he's a man's man. He's always like, man hands. And he had 3 daughters. He didn't have any boys. So here I came along, and from the very beginning, and he would say this too, I had a connection with my father. Wherever he was, that's where I was. I had to be touching him no matter what we did. When he was coaching, and I could, we have the same nose, and I sit there like that all the time. Just like, I find myself like that all the time. And that's at University of Wisconsin, where he was the basketball coach for 10 years. And after University of Wisconsin, and you can tell I'm from Wisconsin when I say Wisconsin. I know, I can't stop. And Wisconsin. And so after at Wisconsin, and his claim to fame was beating Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Bobby Knight was on the Ohio State team at the time, and some of those folks. And he left University of Wisconsin to become the general manager of the Milwaukee Bucks, and started that franchise. So when I started an athletics department, he has to tell me how, when they were in Milwaukee, he and the first coach, Lou Costello, and he signed a young man to his first professional contract named Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he also signed the final contract of another NBA player, Oscar Robertson. Oh, wow. And so some of these names resonate, I can tell, and I remember those. I was very, very young, but he did leave the Milwaukee Bucks to run for the United States Senate. And even when he was campaigning, I remember we took a summer, and I just thought we all wore red, white, and blue all the time. But my dad was running for a political position, but I was there. It didn't matter. He was my daddy. And this Super Bowl ads even this year, it really emphasized fathers. And I love that, because we have fathers out there to be submissive to their children, and that's not how God made us to be, but fathers to be authority over their children, to guide and to love them, and that's how I always felt. Actually, when I did this presentation once before, since then, I wrote my dad a 4-page letter, because I thought, I say these things about my dad, and I never tell him, and so I wrote him a 4-page letter. Of course, I wrote my mom a letter too, and they're so competitive, they had to compare and see who was better. So this was just something. I was always around my dad, and I was always either on his shoulders or, in the car, on the armrest. There was no safety standards back then. You just sit on the armrest, just ready to go right through that windshield. Or sitting in the back, so he can't see. But he was always my safety net. And I wrote that in the letter, actually, I just said, Dad, wherever you were, I was safe. And I could just call, and it just seemed like Dad would be there, and everything was okay. We, after running for Senate, he lost. And we moved to Kansas City in 1972, and where he did become the national president of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So that was most of my upbringing, was in Kansas City under the banner of FCA. And that provided such a great opportunity, such a great ministry in our schools, actually, again, through sport, which is now exactly kind of my tag team to minister through sport. And, but I grew as a golfer. My mom was the golfer, by the way, not my dad, and played at Ohio State in 1949, et cetera, et cetera. And so they really raised me to be a Christian athlete. And there I am at the University of Missouri playing a tournament. Look at that again. He's just sitting there with his hand on his chin, telling me everything I did wrong. And that was the Big 8 championship. That was my senior year, and he walked every step with me. He would come in from out of town and just coach me. And I so value that, and that his love for me is only parallel with my love for him. He went on to take this very famous move that for some of you dads, you've done this. I'm of course looking over. I am not going to look at him. I'm not going to look at him. So I'm looking off in the distance, and I think he's kind of, people are trying to give him support. But what a special time for him to give me away. And that was in Kansas City. Although I had lived here already as a golf coach. And but we just kind of flew up and showed up for the wedding and walked down the aisle. And he, what a special time that he provided. You know, then something happens after you have children, like this brave, full of integrity, very serious man becomes just so goofy, and we have grandchildren, and they're like, oh, give them everything. And I'm like, that is not how you raised me. So he became a grandpa. My own daughter, my husband and I had our daughter, she's 19, just turned 19, and she actually on her own as a freshman has decided to come to CIU. So she's with me. Matter of fact, this morning I arrived and it was like, I love you, Mom, and she had left a note on my desk. Isn't that sweet? Anyways, that thought reminded me. So to this day, my father and I are very close. At 87 years old in Kansas City, yesterday, he does struggle with dementia. My mom even more so. And so he called me, I think it was a message on my machine yesterday, and he's like, I don't know why I called you. And he's like, this is Kim, isn't it? And I'm like listening to this message. And then he goes, I just want to tell you I love you and I miss you. And so, you know, it's really such a privilege and such a blessing to have had such a fine father. And not all of us have that opportunity, but it definitely did help me understand what's the first two words of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father. Now, how simple is that? We try to complicate it, and yet the very love relationship of Dad is how we were taught to pray to the God of the universe. Like, I think that's just amazing. But for some of us who don't have maybe that example, I just want to tell us one more short story. This was maybe last fall. In academics, we talk about fall and spring because those are the semesters, so fall, then you have summer. But so last fall, I had a friend, a male friend. He was 44 years old, and he tragically died. He had a heat stroke while roofing, and this guy, and I call him a friend, kind of was a lost soul, and he had just had a hard time in life. He was a veteran. He had been in Desert Storm and in Iraq, and when he came back, he kind of had a hard time finding his way. And he got married and had a son, and I knew his wife, but he lost his way. He kind of rebelled. He got all tattooed up and got pierced everywhere, and left the family. And so when he passed away, and I heard that he passed away, my husband and I just felt like we needed to go. We didn't know if anybody would show up, actually. And he was from Chicago, and his mom and dad came in from Chicago, and the son of his sat in the front row as well at the funeral. And there were a few people there, but the casket had the American flag over it because he was in the military. And a chaplain who didn't know John conducted his service. And it was a fine service. And at the end, two military men walked up to the casket, and they slowly saluted that casket. And from behind us, horn played taps. You know, now you're at this and you're just kind of like, oh, man, this is really emotional. And so they fold the flag up. And they turn. And they turn to the mother. And they take a step. And they give the flag to the son. A little 7-year-old son. Now the little boy, probably not quite encompassing that his dad's not coming back. He literally, we're behind him, and he literally turned back with this look and kind of showed everybody the flag like it was a gift. But this is the legacy that this man who really struggled in life left for his son. And I love that illustration, that we don't have to be in the military. We don't have to be a great father with a great history of jobs and compassionate towards their children. But every one of us have the ability to love. And that's what we children remember. That's what I remember my dad as a great man, but I remember his love for me and my love for him. And little Chad, his little boy's name, he doesn't remember the tattoos. He doesn't remember the struggles that his dad has. He just knew he loved his dad, John. And that would just be my challenge as we kind of have a takeaway for Valentine's, is that what God did for us and his love for his children is what we are known for in our legacy. And it's such a hard time right now because the news, I'm a news watcher, and I'm sure many of you are, where there's hate and there's challenges and there's government and there's war and there's chaos and there's disagreements and there's murder-suicides and there's corruption and there's, truly we see evil right now in the world. Truly we see evil. All of us are made in God's image, and he puts that place in our life because he loved us that we can love others. So that is just my challenge to us on this Valentine's time, and it's nothing super exciting, something very, very simple, but let's love one another. And come on out to CIU. George will take you around. I'll take you around. We have a special Rams cart that we can drive. I know everyone likes to be in a cart, and we'll let you drive it too. And come out to a game with it. We'll have some more basketball games this season. We're at CIURams.com, by the way, and you get our whole schedule. You can learn about all of our coaches. And as we grow and blossom, we really want to be a part of this Columbia community. And I think we're getting there too. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yes.
Are you affected by Title IX?
Title IX. Am I affected by Title IX?
Every year, and I actually did this at the University of South Carolina, because I was in administration for 7 years at USC. I've gone through many coaches. I started with Sparky Woods, then I went to Brad, and then we went to Lou, and then we had Steve. So I was there all during those years, and I did all the gender equity reports. Title IX is a gender equity law, and you know, I'm good with it. I mean, the whole purpose of it is that we provide equal opportunity for men and women. It can be controversial because across the nation we have wrestling teams being cut or men's swimming being cut, and they're all like, you know, it's Title IX. And then as a woman, you're like, yes, it is. But it's not about women. It's about equity, and it's very tricky how you do those things. But let me just, one of the issues of Title IX, and I love football, and I am for men. I love men. I love men's sports. I wish the law was restated so that it was opportunity for everyone. But budgets aren't unlimited. And so when you have a squad, a football squad, when I left USC, 2005, our football squad was 135, 87 full scholarships, room, board, books, tuition. So the law says the amount of money that you provide for those scholarships, you've got to find it for women. And that's a budget burden. So I really wish we could change some things to, who wants to cut wrestling when you have men who love to wrestle and that's their gift? Or who wants to cut men's swimming? But it comes down to money. So I'd like to see maybe some numbers of some of the huge sports just to come down by 5%. And that would help provide opportunities for others. So it's a tricky law. Timeline. Any others? Anything else controversial? Yes, other sports on the horizon for CIU. The plan is that in the next year, we will add women's softball. And at that point, we will be gender equitable. Honestly, that's one of the reasons why we have to add some team sports. But we would like to build a new field. We really would prefer not to go out and use overused fields for our recreation. So women's softball would be what we'd like to add. Down at USC Beaufort, I started with men's baseball. I love baseball. Now 55 games, it's so much. But the young men that it attracts is a large roster. It's a great All-American sport in the spring. And, with the Gamecocks and even with Clemson, baseball is huge in the state of South Carolina. So, I would really like to see baseball eventually come. I don't know if it'll come under my watch, though. But women's softball is the only next sport. Men's golf yesterday, and that will be for next year. Thanks for asking that. But we have 10 sports, and after we're full grown with softball, we'll have 130 student athletes at that little 500 undergrad campus. Yes?
None of these children are on scholarship, are they?
It's a good question. It's a good question. We do provide athletic scholarships. I do want to clarify just for one moment, though, because I said that once in a CIU meeting, and a father stood up and said, my children will not come to a place that the school places so much emphasis on athletic scholarships. And the perception when you say athletic scholarship is full scholarship. Just like I mentioned, 87 full scholarships for football, because they're a head count and you can't break them up. We're not under the NCAA, by the way. And that's a good thing. And, we don't have legislation, so now we can actually minister to young people. Now, at the beginning of their 9th grade year, we can have a meal with you. We don't have to start ignoring you. We can actually embrace you. So we have camps and summer camps. We do provide minimal athletic scholarships, and I'm so proud of that. And we do believe that any of you who have had young people who you've invested in them, they work hard. They don't take on other jobs. They come every afternoon. They're dedicating their time. They're sacrificing their friends in order to do this. And we truly believe that this is almost a job to our athletes. So we break them up, and I would say on average, a student athlete might have, on average, $1,500 to maybe $2,000. Tuition at CIU is $18,900. That's a lot of money for anybody, but it's one of the least expensive private education in the state. But education is expensive. So we do provide athletics scholarships, and we have full-time coaches. So this is something really kind of odd. I really believe in the coach, because I'm a daughter of a coach. But I definitely believe that the coach has to pour into that student. And I don't want them just showing up at 3 o'clock and having practice. So, very good. Very good. Hey, thank you so much.